Hello Achievers, today we are with a new guest, an awesome guest, Brad Szollose, and he is a winning author, an award-winning author of Liquid Leadership, a professional of the Y generation, and today he will answer my questions. So thank you very much, Brad.
Great, David.
And how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm very happy to be on your show today. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And the French people will be able to discover you because the video will be translated in English, in in French. And my first question, it is a global question because a lot of people who are following me ask me that. According to you, how to develop self-confidence? Because we were talking about you were shy, and I would like to know more about this story and if you can share it.
Absolutely. It's funny when I tell people that I was deathly shy as a kid, they don't believe it because I can stand on stage in front of 6,000 people and tell a speech and make people laugh. So they look at me and they're like, what?
You lie.
Yes, you are a liar. So I've learned over the years what happened is my father gave me some very tough lessons because my father's the first generation born here in the United States and he's Hungarian. So he's tough. Okay.
It's a warrior.
Right. So I wasn't raised like other American children. My father was tough and all my friends knew it as well. And he broke me of being shy by sitting me down one day and we had a new neighbor move in. And there was another child next door, and he was like 8 or 10 years old, just like me, same age. And my father said, "You're not coming in this house until you say hello to that new kid." Well, I sat there in the backyard staring at this kid for an hour. And the pain and the misery I put myself through in that hour was astronomical. And I finally said, "Hello," and I ran back in the house. I was scared to death. But something happened. I sat in my bedroom and I realized that was stupid what I did. It was just a waste of time for me to sit there. Right. And I realized I had put more effort in being scared than to just go up and say hello to somebody. And I learned as a child to be able to walk up to any adult, to walk up to any person and speak with them. And the other side of that paradigm is my mother was an entertainer. She could sing and she could play piano. She could go up to anybody and talk to them and make them feel at home, no matter where they were from. And I picked up that skill as well from her. And so with that combination, you can learn, I believe, to really overcome any situation, that gift of gab, as we call it here in the United States. If you're able to sit with people from the heart and just really connect with people one-on-one, because everybody, no matter where they are in the world, they have the same wants and needs, and that is connection with other people.
So from these experiences, what could be the advice do you want to give to people who are shy or feel a lack of self-confidence?
Take a risk with something that you love and enjoy. If you're a shy person and you stay at home a lot, get outside more, take dance lessons, go to a class, take a speech class, join Toastmasters, learn how to give a speech. Trust me, you're gonna get over that shyness if you're thrust into that arena. I take the martial arts. I like getting involved and going to tournaments and things like that. So working with people one-on-one and being able to be in a group setting at the same time, you'll get that confidence just by getting out there. Do the opposite of what you think you should do is kind of my motto, because our brain kind of lies to us. But if you really want to come out of your shell and you want to learn and you want to make friends, get out there and do it. There's an old expression that says, if you want to have friends, be a friend first.
So for self-confidence, you decide what you love, what you want to reach, and you do an action in this direction.
Yes.
You take a risk in this direction. So you have to do only one way, only one time, or often.
For some of us, it's something that we have to do all the time. We have to learn by doing more and more, and it becomes a habit. Let's put it that way. Like for me, once I learned how to overcome shyness by my father forcing me into a situation, I came out of my shell and I started volunteering for more things. The other thing I did is I played drums. And so my mother would play piano and sing because she was a professional singer. And she'd have me accompany her, and I would play drums. Now I'm like 11 years old, 10 years old, I'm playing drums, and everybody's like, he's so cute. And I'm on stage, and I'm like this, I'm so scared, I'm rigid. And I started to relax more and more, and I realized it was just a complete waste of energy to be afraid. Because I'll be honest with you, when I go on stage today, I don't have what's called fear, I have anxiety. Because as a fellow speaker, you probably know, when you go in front of that corporate audience, that first minute is all you worry about. Because you're like, okay, I have my thoughts, I know my stories, I know what I want to get across. But it's that first minute, get me out there. I want to get out there, I want to get moving, I want to do what I do best. And it's a skill that you can learn.
So you are saying that you can improve your self-confidence, but you will still have stress, and it's not a problem.
Right.
It's not because you stress you will fail.
Well, I look at it this way. A lot of people don't know this about me, but I was a C-level chief marketing officer for my own corporation, multi-million-dollar corporation. But I also did stand-up comedy as well for about 8 years professionally. And what I learned from that is you get on stage and your throat goes dry and your palms start to sweat and you can't speak. Just tell yourself, that's a normal state. We fight like crazy as human beings to not have that feeling, when that's a natural feeling. The greatest performers in the world will tell you how much anxiety they feel sometimes before they go on stage. And these are people who've been doing it for 40 years. So if you begin to realize that this is a natural state, to feel that way, don't fight it. Okay, I'm freaking out here. And be honest with yourself. Don't beat yourself up so much. Just get out there and try new things. It'll break that shyness. Just get up and get out. And some of us, we were raised in professions where you're encouraged to stay inside all the time, like a graphic designer, someone who blogs a lot, or someone who's online and doing different things where they have to be inside a lot. So they're relying on Skype or Uvu or any one of these social networks and video chat rooms and things like this. It's really great to get up and go outside. Get up and go take a class with a group of people where you are forced to speak. You'll break out of that shyness.
And you are an expert about generation and
Yes.
the gap between generation. I have two examples: a parent or a manager. If a manager or a parent have someone who is shy. So do you think you have to do the same thing as your father?
Maybe it depends on what you're working. If you're working in a loading dock where people are yelling all the time, you're probably going to have to learn how to yell, because different environments require different tactics.
Yes.
So if you're in an accounting firm, you can't yell at everybody. So you have to learn where that confidence is going to come from. And I think experience actually helps. We're going to get a shift taking place over the next 10 to 15 years. What's going to take place is the baby boomers, the older generations born after World War II, are now going to start to retire. And the people coming into management positions are Generation Y. And they're all 40 and younger right now. Everybody thinks they're young, but they're actually 40 and younger. So they're now coming into positions of management.
I mean, at the end of Y generation, I think.
Yes, you're at the end. You're like a true millennial. You know what I mean? Like you're really, like you probably came in, you were raised to be an entrepreneur. You were raised to be a speaker, to stand up and do your own thing, to command your own ship. Well, that's a hallmark of your generation. You're more of a millennial, as they would say. Yeah. But you're going to see these generations move forward. And all I can say is this: the progressive companies out there know that great ideas are coming from youth, and they are listening. Okay, Jeffrey Gitomer, you know what he says?
Yes.
His best advisors are under 30. And guess what? The smart companies are now going to start to listen to the youth, because you've been raised with technology, you've been raised with, we got to get to business faster, we've got to communicate faster. You've been raised to think with a business head and integrate communication, creativity, and all these products into one brain, okay? So they know, the smart companies know, if they want to progress and they want to survive into the future, they've got to listen to the youth. Look in France, how many brands that your parents grew up with don't exist anymore, that are dying? Because your generation doesn't even know what they are. You don't know anything about them.
Yes.
Here in the United States, we had Spiegel catalogs. They were the leading catalog company in the world. They're almost gone. All they have is a website. It's like, what do they represent? Because the internet has brought brands along like Facebook that were started by 20-somethings. Netflix was started in 1996 by Reed Hastings. He was like 30 at the time. Youth is driving so much change and innovation right now. And I think the smart companies are going to start to listen to the youth, and the youth are going to come into their own. But the thing that's going to happen is they've got to learn how to manage older adults now.
And as a Y expert, you follow the generation, or you focus on the new generation?
I focus on all the generations. I look at the 4 generations right now that are in the workforce. We have traditionalists who fought in World War II. We have baby boomers. They are the ones that were born after World War II, from 1946 to around 1964, 1965 in there. We have Generation X, which is from about 1965 to 1976.
My parents?
Right, and then the real shift took place in 1977. And in 77, that's when everything took off. That's when Gen Y was born. That's when millennials started to happen. That's when the echo boomer started to take place and things like that. And what drove those generations are 3 major influences starting in 1977. The first was Star Wars. Star Wars was the very first movie that was seen all over the world, whether you were in Malaysia, or you were in Japan, or you were in the Philippines, or you were in South America, you saw Star Wars. Star Wars showed a ubiquitous use of technology in the background. And if you look at everything today that we use, whether it's an iPad, or it's some sort of cloud technology, or an iPhone, that was all driven by us seeing it actually being used. And we have most of the devices that you see in Star Wars, we have today. We have robots, we have holograms, we have cloud digital networks. We have all these things. Yes, we don't have a starship yet, but they're working on lightsabers, they're working on lasers. And Star Trek, a lot of people believe Star Trek was a huge influence as well. So from that moment on, if you look at the top 10 blockbuster movies over the last 35 years,
Yes.
most of them have been science fiction driven. So you're looking at an entire generation that was raised where technology is not science fiction, but science fact. Okay? The second major influence is this. Video games came into the households in 1977. Most generations...
So the new generation is born with video games.
Right, technology. So what has happened is, I'm a baby boomer, and I was taught to sit down, shut up, and listen. My parents told me that, and my teachers told me that. Okay? I was not supposed to move. In order to get ahead, I had to study hard, I had to pass all the tests, and an authority figure that I had to look up to would decide if I moved forward. Now, I did the same thing when I came out into my career. I studied hard, I learned my lessons, passed my tests, and moved on. And most baby boomers were taught that through their whole career, they would get a big salary and eventually at a certain age get a corner office, and young people would look up to them and admire them for all their hard work, and they would get that corner office as a status symbol that they had made it, or a title.
Yes.
And that is no longer valid, because that's a status symbol of the 20th century. We are now in the 21st century, and in the 21st century, everything is different. Video games have trained the brains of a whole new generation to think completely differently. How do you learn in a video game?
In playing.
Right. You take action, okay. In a video game, you don't read a book and study how to learn it. You leap in.
Yes, that's
You
right.
leap in and you learn by doing. You take risk and failure. Baby boomers were taught don't screw up.
That's why the new company is startup, no plan, just do it.
Right. Baby boomers were taught you had to earn the right to get ahead. Don't screw up. Don't make a mistake because that will be the end of your career. You're an entire generation that was taught take risk. Risk is the only way to learn. Intuitively look for the rules, look for the mentors in the game, okay? Pass all the tests, learn and grab what you need to do, learn what the cheats are on the sheet so you can get ahead faster. And once you storm the castle, kill the trolls, and you save the princess in the video game world, forget everything you just learned because the rules change at the next level. If you're a baby boomer listening and watching this, you're going to be sitting there going, huh? Does any of this behavior sound familiar?
So we are trained to learn and erase. That's right.
Yes, update and learn, update and discard.
So we learn fast, but it's not so deep.
Well, baby boomers, we were taught to be technically perfect. If you ask any of the older boomers who do code and IT, they try to do the code perfect the first time. If you talk to a young person who does code and IT, they'll borrow some code from someone else's software code over here, they throw it all together, and they don't worry about fixing the mistakes until they're done. And that's why we get updates all the time of software, because there's a lot of mistakes in the software and you keep getting updates and updates. So it's speed that has become paramount. And anybody born right around 1977 and after has learned to manipulate digital information before they could read or write, and in some cases before they could speak. So you are the digital native. That's really what you're called.
Yes.
You're a digital native. You've been immersed in this, and you're comfortable with it.
I have a question about that. So the way to learn, the way to teach adults, and the way to teach X generation or Y generation, it's not the same.
Each generation has been taught differently. Okay,
for example, if I write a book for youth, it's not the same way to write for
baby boomers.
Yes.
You wouldn't write it in the same way, and I'll show you why. For youth, if you're going to write a book, it has to be quick and easy chapters, simple, like a page and a half, a page, because our brains have actually been reformed and trained from the internet. We only read a page and a half of information. If a website doesn't grab us in the first 4 seconds with either a video or a promise statement or a paragraph and a half of really great information, we move on.
The book have to follow the same rules. That's right.
Sort of. If you notice, the most popular books right now are these mini books that give you a little bit of information at a time. It's a little chapter here, a little bit of wisdom here, and it's almost written like a blog. Like Seth Godin's books are a very good example of quick, get to the point, quick little chapters, mini chapters. That's how most books are written for youth today.
So we feel Unlimited Power, it's a huge book. It's the end of this kind of book now.
You're still going to need a book like that for credibility, because a great author is still going to have a hardback. But that book has to have legs now. You have to be able to put that book on a Kindle, some interactive device. There may be connections now to videos where that book has a paragraph in there and you click on it and you get proof through either a video or a citation, or you get to meet the other people that they've quoted in the book, things like that. So you're going to see interactivity go to this next level. Look at the comic book industry. The comic book industry is kind of fading out. They don't know what to do because youth, who's been their primary target, is kind of leaving in droves. But they're going and looking at the same brand, the same superheroes in the video game world. Like, here's a good example. When Iron Man first came out in 2008, #1, that opening box office weekend, Iron Man made $98 million that weekend, right? It's great. The video game, however, made $200 million that weekend. That means there's all these secondary markets from a singular brand that's being driven by your generation. And a lot of the older generations are looking at video games as toys, things that kids play, when in reality, There are 35-year-olds who don't have kids who play video games on the weekend. Guitar Hero is a video game. Rock Band is a video game. Halo, all these video games. So there's other brands and markets that are opening up because of digital technology.
So do you think the best way to teach youth, it's maybe to make and to build video games?
Exactly. In my book, Liquid Leadership, I talk about this because I was trying to figure out why the behavior was so different. See, I started the first .com company on Wall Street back in the 90s. I didn't know I was doing that at the time. I was just addressing a new market. And I was hiring people that were only 3 to 7 years younger than me, but they thought and acted and behaved completely differently. So I started to get confused. I go, what is going on? This seems like a trend. Like everybody younger than me is doing things differently. So I spent about 15 years doing the research for the book. And one of the places I flew to, and I interviewed some of the best and brightest minds in the country, and the world actually, I flew out to the Games and Learning Society conference out in Madison, Wisconsin. And I recommend that everybody does this. It was a huge eye-opener for me. So what happened is I would start to see that I flew out to the Games and Learning Society conference in Madison, Wisconsin. And that's where the top academic professors come together with game designers, some of the most violent game designers in the world, like from Electronic Arts and things like that. And they come together and they fuse their ideas to help use games in the classroom from kindergarten on up to college. And some people are scoffing at this, but it woke me up like you wouldn't believe, because several things I saw. Imagine taking an economics course for a semester where you actually create a gaming simulation with your team, where you build a small town and you attract businesses and corporations, you create taxation, and you're able to run this small town so that it's profitable. Now, they can run multiple simulations before they actually get out of college and go to work in government. So they've actually had practice runs as to what you can do and what you shouldn't do. If you have taxes being too high, the simulation will show corporations will leave. If you bring them in with balance and you don't tax the middle class too much, and you'll have a balanced simulation. So they were doing things like this. This blew my mind. Using games in the classroom is the next phase. And if you look at the Khan Academy, I don't know if you've seen that, but Microsoft, Bill Gates put I think $1 billion into the Khan Academy. And what this is online video classrooms.
Yes.
Training.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is the next wave. This is the next way to learn, because a student can learn at their own pace. Instead of sitting in a classroom feeling embarrassed to raise their hand and go, I don't quite know what you've been talking about for the past hour. They can take the video and roll it back and look at it and try the equations and keep moving until they actually get it on their own time.
And what do you think about the fact to build videos for mobile?
Right.
For example, the youth can follow their training on the iPhone.
Oh, yes. Well, think about it this way. This device has created what's called augmented reality. This device allows me in seconds to access not only my database and network, but to take photos, upload it, share PDFs and information.
Yes.
And it's only the beginning, because now they're developing applications or apps for this that can take on other things. Besides accessing the global positioning satellites, besides, finding a cool restaurant, you'll be able to monitor, let's say, your EKG, and your doctor will be able to monitor it through your iPhone. You'll be able to hook up electrodes and go, hey, how's my heart rate, doc? Your life will be changing, because the entire planet Earth is about to become a Wi-Fi network, the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just the beginning, these types of devices. And it's been driven mostly by youth. I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that might doubt this, but how many older generations are texting because that's the only way to reach their grandchildren? Or they're using the Facebook because they want to see what their grandkids are up to? Are they their own children? Okay, because it's the new communication device of the 21st century.
Yes, and you are dealing with the fact that youth prefer to follow online and when they want. But do you think to if we go to the extreme, uh, the youth will not have any contacts, any real contacts?
That's correct. That's where someone like you comes in, who teaches FaceTime. This face-to-face communication will always be needed. Even if you're on a Skype network, even if you're on sort of a video conference chat, there's certain etiquette and certain things. The stories that we tell enrich our lives. So look at this more as a platform for the next generation, the 21st century equivalent of the printing press or the electric grid system. This is the next wave that's come along, where now the infrastructure is in place and speed and mastery is coming up. And the next generation is going to have to learn a new set of communication tools if they're going to survive. Because baby boomers like myself, we're retiring. So how do you pass on that legacy? How do you pass on to young people who have a whole new skill set that perhaps boomers do not have? How do you communicate that to the next wave that's been exposed to technology and may not see the value in creating something long-term like the older generations have learned?
Mm. And do you have some life lessons do you want to give to youth?
Absolutely. I've probably failed more times than I've succeeded, but it's those moments where I did not give up that I succeeded. And one of the things that happened to me is back when I first started my company, K2, it was in a tiny room, maybe 15 by 20 with two Macintosh, two CI computers. And that first year was such a struggle because we had already established ourselves here in New York City as graphic designers and businessmen. And what happened is, all of a sudden this new thing came along called the internet. And my business partner came running into the office one day and he goes, "We have to become an internet company." And I was like, "What's the internet?" Because it's 1994, nobody really knew what the internet was. And we were struggling so hard at that time because I was married and I had two kids and I was barely making any money. And I just realized that I had to not give up. I was in too deep. Yeah, have you ever started a project and you can't quit it because you're in too far? Yes. And I realized I could not give up. This was going to succeed no matter what. Well, we suddenly attracted a new CEO, and he was a young guy from Wharton, 3 to 4 years younger than me, and he knew how to take the company to the next level. So you're going to run into people and you're going to meet people that have the knowledge base that you might lack. So never worry that you don't know everything. You're going to meet the right people on the road. Trust in that. And right after that, right after we brought him on board, he did like $1.5 million in sales that first year that he came on board. And I was like, "You're hired." Not only did I make him CEO, I made him a business partner. The following year, he did $4.3 million, and then the following year, he did $7.3 million in sales. So success is a lot of times right around the corner, just before you're about to give up. Things that will shift, trust me. There was one more thing I wanted to add to those three things that influence your generation. The third and final piece of all this is, I don't know how it was in France, but in the United States, they started to do this thing called child-centric parenting and child-centric teaching. And what that is they flatten the hierarchy in the household. So instead of looking up to mom and dad, children were encouraged to have the same conversations with their parents. And the children made the decisions in the household. Parents would go, "Do you want to play soccer? Do you want to play baseball? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Should mommy and daddy stay together or get a divorce?" I'm making a joke, but these were the kind of conversations that children were now elevated into. And when they went to their schools, they were encouraged to call their teachers by their first names. Did that happen in France?
No.
Well, it changed over here. In some countries, that was encouraged. That youth were the next wave, and they fought like crazy to say what they wanted to. And here in the United States, somebody would get right out of college and walk straight up to the CEO of a corporation and go, "Hey, I'm going to show you how to run this place better." And that was happening a lot here in the United States right around the late 90s into the early 2000, 2004. So it was causing a lot of chaos here in the United States. And if you look, Mark Zuckerberg and some of these other youth-driven CEOs, they have this confidence that's at a completely different level. So I would say to some of the youth that you're mentoring, look at some of these people who have started multi-million-dollar corporations at a young age.
Learn from them. Learn from them.
Learn from them. Look at them, because all they're doing is emulating some of the greats around the world. You know, who was it? Emile Coué said this best. Every day, in every way, I keep getting better and better.
Yes.
So you have to trust in that fact that every day, in every way, you're getting better and better.
I think it's a great, great advice.
Yes.
I would like to ask you another question, because I do training for teachers sometimes, and I will do more and more. Do you have some advices for teachers? When I say teachers, it's teachers for youth, teacher for young who are 18 years old, maybe.
Well, let me get a little context here. You said in France it's a little bit different. Here in the United States, the children were given trophies for showing up at baseball games. There were no winners and losers all of a sudden. From 1977 on, everything in the teaching world shifted into this: the youth are the center of everything. Rather than training them for the future, it was sort of like, we're going to have fun and we're going to build self-confidence. The number one thing that was taught in the United States was self-confidence over the last 30 years or so. So we have a generation that believes that they're special at every single level, but they don't know why they're special. You have to discover that. So I think for any teacher out there, whether it's in France or Germany or anywhere in the world, you have to teach children or young adults the discipline of how to get from point A to point B if they want to succeed. Also, why self-esteem is important, why they need to have confidence in their skills and their talents at the same time. You know, there's a lot of talented piano players out there, but not all of them get to Carnegie Hall. Not all of them get to play, at the great concert halls in France, okay? You need to know that there's a game plan, a method for each and every person's career. Each person is going to do it differently. And one of the things I always like to tell youth is every business, every successful person out there, it doesn't matter who they are, that top person learned the secret of their industry by studying it and hanging out with the other people who had the secret of their industry. So just by hanging out with the right people, tell the teachers to encourage students to go listen to businessmen and introduce themselves and say hello, because we're all out there. We're willing to spend time with youth because we know how hard it was. We were in your shoes back then when nobody was listening to us. When I was young, I told some of my teachers, I'm going to live in New York City and I'm going to have a corporation. I'm going to be famous. And they told me I was an idiot. Okay? And they told me to sit down and shut up. And now they had me come back to my high school, and I gave speeches, and I got a special award for distinguished alumnus. So follow your passion and your dreams, but also learn how to study, be open to knowledge that may not fit what you were taught, because you're going to get it from the top people who know the secret of that industry. And never give up. Keep going. If you have a dream and you believe in it, it will manifest. Give it time.
Thank you very much. I have a last question for you. We say we have advices for youth, for their teachers, and what could you give to parents, because maybe they are baby boomers, and maybe they have children of the white generation or under.
Sure.
Maybe they are afraid sometimes, or maybe they don't understand their own children.
Right.
And what can they do? They have to let them do. What can they do to help them, and to help them to become happy adults, happy and successful adults?
The key to this world, I believe, let me go back a little bit. If you're a parent, I think the most successful thing you can do is look at your child almost as if you're a stranger. It's hard because we love our kids and we look at them and we have opinions about what their capabilities are and what their limitations are. Okay? Here's a good example. My father always was worried that I would never be able to make a living. So he got on my case that I had to learn mathematics and I had to learn the science and I was whatever. And then when I told him I was going to go to graphic design school, he didn't understand it at all. And so my high school teachers actually had to tell him, look, it isn't like when you were growing up. Today, a graphic designer can do all kinds of things. They can work with video, they can work on a movie set, they can work all over the place or start their own business. So a lot of parents, the reason they do what they do is they're afraid that their children aren't going to be able to make a living or be able to eat, being a certain age and a failure because they followed some crazy dream. Well, it's not like it was when the parents were growing up, the baby boomers. Today, young people can make a living going and making movies. They can make a living working in video production. That was a pipe dream when I was a kid. Well, you're going to go to Hollywood? That's crazy. Well, now you can go to UCLA, get your degree, and go work in Hollywood right away, or for a production company. It's considered a job, just like an astronaut is now a job. These things are the professions of the 21st century. And all I can say to parents is, try to see your child in a new light. Just take a good look at them and go, what are they passionate about? What does my child get up every morning and get excited about? Do they love to play the drums? Do they love music and sound? Do they love science and math? And steer them in that direction and keep them open to possibilities, because you can be a mathematics person and build a server. You can be a teacher and start like the Khan Academy. You can be a great musician and help other musicians put their albums together. So there's all these other platforms and capabilities and possibilities that are right under our noses. But a lot of times as parents, we cannot see that because we might have a judgment call on our children based on some of what our own parents told us. Like, stop daydreaming, those kind of things we've all heard. Don't daydream, get a job. Why aren't you up out of bed? It's 10 o'clock, let's go, move it. When I was your age, I was...
Yeah. But it's very interesting that what you're saying about what my children love, and maybe some parents think that their children only love video games, alcohol, and drugs, and what they can do, they have to let them or to question them. What do you love in these video games?
Yeah.
What do you love when you take alcohol?
But the thing is that you are going to have to look at your child in that light, but also, and this is what a child may not know, especially a young adult, what's the path to success? Parents do know that on many levels, a lot of them, and just to steer the child in that direction. I gave a talk at my high school, and you would be shocked at what happened. I was blown away by this. This is a generational shift. I walked into the English and science departments and I spoke, and at the end I do a question and answer. And the English and science majors and the smart kids basically had very little questions about the success or what they wanted to do with their career. But when I went into the art department, and my high school had a very progressive art department growing up, sculpture, painting, you name it, they did it. Won awards, top awards. I couldn't get out of there for an hour because the kids were raising their hands and go, how can I do this for a living? How can I go and put my sculptures and my passion to work? And one kid made a joke. He said, yeah, I'm going to do video games, with this. And I said, you should. I want you to go home and talk to your parents. I want you to draft a letter, and because you're 16 or 17 years old, I want you to write a letter to Pixar, and I want you to write to the CEO. And I told him who to write to. I also want you to send a letter to the head of electronic arts. And I want you to tell them, I'm 16 years of age, I love video games, and I love art. How can I become an artist in the video game world? How can I bring my designs, my ideas to life in the video game world? See, if I were your age today with the talent that I had as a graphic designer, I would have gone straight to Pixar. They have their own university out in California where they teach you and train you in the Pixar methodology of making movies. And I think that young people today, if you have a passion for something, get out there and do it, because there's so many platforms that allow you to actually do it today.
I love what you're saying.
Good. And there's a practical side to this too. You know, it's like money and success and having a good plan are very important. And I think where my father was concerned, and I think a lot of parents today are concerned, is they're afraid that these professions that we're talking about 100 years ago were whimsy. They were flights of fantasy. You know, it was 1 in a million person that wound up working in Hollywood. 1 in a million person that wound up working at NASA. But today, it's very different. So parents don't need to worry like they used to. It's like, okay, you want to be an artist, you want to be a musician. How can we take it to the next level for this generation? It's very powerful what can go on now. You can produce an entire album with multiple musicians from your apartment with the sound equipment you get from Apple.
Yes.
So we have tools at our fingertips. We have the internet. You can market for free everything. It's not like it was 40 years ago.
You are saying, we are talking about to write a letter to people who inspire you. For example, with my girlfriend, we believe that men like Spielberg or George Lucas could be very inspiring, because we think the movie can be a good way to teach youth. And according to you, what can we do to meet? Because it's easier for me to meet speaker, hoster, because I work on this domain and in this field, and I have done a lot of things. I do my conferences, so I have a credibility to meet author, and I have a show. But what advice can you give me to interview, for example, George Lucas?
The best thing you can do is, because of your youth, I think he's open more to talking with young people right off the bat. Immediately they're open to helping young people, you know, get into certain professions right away, because it's needed. That's where the fresh ideas are coming from. When you're young, when you're 18, when you're 21 and you're right out of college, write that letter to the CEO. Don't be afraid, because my generation was taught you have to earn the right to be able to contact these people. But your generation has been taught, oh, I can meet a movie star on Twitter and talk to them. Okay? So the hierarchy is flattened. You remember I said hierarchy is flattened in the household and in the schools and in the corporate environment. So a lot of your generation believe that they should have access to the CEO, the president of France, the person in their local government. I should be able to contact them and tell them how I feel. So have an articulate conversation with them, write them a letter, and see if you can get an interview. See if you can even get a Skype phone call with them or something, because it isn't like it used to be. You have access to these people. Within a few minutes, you can do a Google search and find out who the CEO of any corporation is in the world.
Yes.
And you can call them.
What could be the best thing we have to put light on? The fact we are youth, we are young, the fact we want to help youth, maybe it's a good thing to shed light on, to put light on.
The best thing I can tell your generation is be patient and learn as much as you can, because in a very short while, I know
to contact, for example, George Lucas.
Oh, okay.
In the letter, according to you, I have to focus on the fact the project will help a lot of youth, the fact the project we can help them, because I know that my video will reach a lot of people. I know that, but today and currently, I touch thousands of people, but it's not million. And do you
It will
think I
be.
can say that? I can say I'm sure because it's true. I'm sure of that. Do you think I can say that, or it will be pretentious?
No, I don't think it's pretentious. Um, I think at one time your generation, maybe not you so much, but like the Mark Zuckerberg was seen as highly pretentious and arrogant because he had so much self-confidence that he would tell off older people. And they would look at him like, how dare you? But he proved to them that he was right. I'm not saying do it that way because I don't think that's a smart way, because you're going to make some older generations angry because they've earned the right to be in the positions they're in. But if there's any older executives watching, a lot of the things that have come down the road in the last 5 years didn't exist beforehand. So you may not even be aware of the trends and the changes that are coming. So I recommend to any older CEO, be open to youth coming in the door because they've got some great ideas if you're willing to listen. And for younger people, all I would say is learn to ask and work with older adults because they have the money for your projects. They have the experience to guide you out of the bumpy times when you don't know what's going to happen. You know, it isn't always going to be success, success, success. A lot of times, most entrepreneurs, it's their fourth business that finally takes off. They've had 3 failures first. So my recommendation is contact those business experts. And you know, when you're dealing with the upper echelon, like a Steven Spielberg or a George Lucas, you're going to be dealing with, in the very beginning, one of their secretaries or one of their personal assistants. And if you are good and kind and wonderful to that assistant, they're the doorkeeper or the gatekeeper for you being able to get access to them.
Okay.
A lot of these big people, like a Donald Trump, doesn't use a cell phone. They don't use the internet. They hire people to do that for them because they're too busy. But if you are from, let's say, a college newspaper and you really want to get an interview with somebody big, a big name, people are much more personal today than they were 40 years ago. It was a little harder to get an interview with somebody like a Steven Spielberg or a George Lucas at one time. Today it's a lot easier because you can find out where to contact them, who is the agent that handles their public appearances, and they're willing to listen to youth and do things for free at this level because they want to give back.
Thank you very much for all your answers. So I have a last question for you. It's very important because I would like to help people to become loser. And
no one's ever asked me that.
So maybe you have very good tips, advices, and strategies to how to become a loser according to you.
Yeah. The best way to become a loser is don't listen to anyone around you. Be bullheaded and do it your own way all the time. And even if you're failing, continue down that road. Don't ask for help at all. That will help you be a loser. Don't read any books.
Yes.
Don't learn from any experts. Okay. Don't ask questions. Think you know it all.
Yes, I know everything. Okay.
Right, you know everything. Tell people off. Just tell them, go to, whatever, and just do whatever you feel like. That's the best way to become a loser.
Yes, it's a good thing to start.
I've never been asked that question. That's great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It will help a lot of people.
Thank you, David. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.